أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Welcome. In this explainer, we're going to dive into a story from Sūrah al-Kahf. But this isn't just about history. Think of it more as a map for the soul, a guide for how to handle what might be the most intoxicating trial of all, power.
You see, the Quran gives us this incredible story of Dhul-Qarnayn. And what's so powerful about it is that the real test he faces, well, it isn't just about being a tyrant versus a just ruler. No, it's something way more subtle, more insidious. It's that quiet corruption that creeps in when we start thinking our successes are all our own doing.
So, let's start at the very beginning. Let's look at the foundation of Dhul-Qarnayn's authority. Because the Quran makes something crystal clear right from the get-go, his power was a gift. It was not something he earned or achieved on his own. There's this very specific, very powerful word the Quran uses for his power, tamkeen. It means, a firm establishment, a solid footing given directly by God. And that one word, it changes everything. It immediately sets the stage for his entire story, a story about humility and remembering the divine source of all things.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because this lays out a crucial three-step process. First, God grants the tamkeen, the establishment. Second, he gives the sabab, the means, the path forward. But look closely at that third step. The servant has to pursue those means. This just shatters the idea that faith is passive. True trust, true tawakkul, isn't about sitting back and waiting. It's about getting up and actively, intelligently using the tools God has placed right in front of you. Okay, so with that foundation of active trust in mind, we can really start to understand his three incredible journeys. And these aren't just trips on a map, not at all. They're really a kind of inner cartography, a map of our own souls, our own inner landscapes. So his first journey, it takes him west, to what the Quran calls the setting place of the sun. Picture that, a place of fading light, of murky, muddy waters. And it's there he finds a group of people, and is hit with this immediate choice, this test. Are you going to punish them, or are you going to treat them with goodness?
So let's pause and ask ourselves, what does that journey to the setting sun really mean for us, inside our own hearts? What is that murky, unclear place within ourselves?
Well, this is the inner test, isn't it? It's about facing those darker, less defined impulses of our own self, our nafs. When you have power, even a little bit, when you think nobody's watching, how do you behave? Is it just about cold hard justice, or do you choose husn, that beautiful, excellent way of being? They say power corrupts, but maybe it just reveals what's already there.
All right, so from the darkness of the west, he travels east to the rising place of the sun, a complete contrast. Now he's in a place of raw, unfiltered light, and the people he finds here, they are completely exposed, totally fragile, with nothing to shelter them.
And this brings up a totally different and maybe even more subtle question, right? What's supposed to happen when strength, when knowledge and spiritual light meet weakness and vulnerability? How are the strong meant to engage with the fragile? And the takeaway here is so crucial. It's that real spiritual growth absolutely has to, come with compassion. The stronger you get, the more you know, the more spiritually aware you become, the more gentle and careful you have to be. Real leadership isn't about dropping a rule book on everyone. It's about understanding the situation, protecting those who are fragile, and not, crushing them under the weight of your own light. Okay, his third and final journey, he reaches this frontier, this kind of in-between space, between the two barriers. And the people he finds there are dealing with such a fundamental human problem. They can barely understand speech. Just communicating is a huge struggle.
So again, what's the inner meaning here? What is this space between two barriers, inside of each of us? This place of potential conflict and misunderstanding.
This is really about the inner frontier of our own soul. It's that place where our orderly, disciplined side meets our chaotic, impulsive side. And wow, is that a test of patience? And those forces they're so afraid of, Yajuj and Majuj, Gog and Magog, we can see them as a symbol for our own unchecked desires, all that spiritual noise and confusion that's just waiting to raid our hearts if we don't build some kind of inner barrier.
And that leads us right to the climax of the story, both physically and spiritually, the building of this great barrier. This is just a masterclass in what you might call moral architecture.
So the people come to him and they offer him money, right? A tribute, a kharj, to fix their problem. And his response is, it's just game-changing. He completely refuses any personal gain. Instead, he asks for partnership. He says, "Ainuni, help me.
Think about that. This isn't a story about some hero flying in to save the day. It's about a leader empowering a community to build its own protection. And that refusal, that simple act, is a perfect lesson in ikhlas, or sincerity. He cleanses the intention of the whole project. This massive undertaking won't be for money, it won't be for fame, it's going to be for God alone, to protect His creation. He is literally starving his ego of the very thing it desires most.
Even the materials he uses are dripping with symbolism. The iron, that's your moral firmness, your backbone of principles. The fire that melts it, that's purification, the tough times and the discipline that burn away all our weaknesses. And then the molten copper that seals it all together, that's consistency. It's about sealing every little crack where corruption could possibly get in. There's a Sufi saying, a soft heart needs strong principles. And this is it, right here.
But you know, the most profound lesson of all, the absolute peak of his spiritual character, it comes after all this incredible work is done. It's in the very last thing he says.
He doesn't step back, puff out his chest and say, look at what I built. Not at all. He doesn't take a single ounce of credit. Instead, he says, this is a rahmah, a mercy from my Lord. He gives all the credit for the success, the strength, the whole thing, right back to the source. And then he goes one step further. He reminds everyone, and probably himself too, that even this amazing wall is temporary. Everything in this world will eventually turn to dust.
And as the beautiful poet Rumi might put it, the lesson for us is so clear. Yes, we have to build things in this world, we have to be responsible and create structures that protect people. But we can never, ever start to worship the things we build. The wall isn't what saves us. Salvation is, and only ever will be, with God. So let's just end with a quiet moment with this beautiful prayer, this munajat, that's really inspired by his journey.
O giver of strength and restraint, do not let power make us forget you. Let our hands build without claiming, and our authority dissolve into mercy. Amen.
This explainer was compiled with a heart full of gratitude by Mir Ali Shah and is shared as part of the Living the Wisdom of the Quran podcast. We also just want to ask for God's forgiveness and acceptance for any mistakes or any AI-related mispronunciations you might have heard in this presentation. Thank you so much for joining us on this reflection.